Welcome to the Sound in Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Gina Isham, owner and founder of Dreamr Productions and Sound in Marketing Learning. I create, consult, and educate brands and individuals on the power of sound in marketing. Now back to the show. On January 1st, 2000, Americans got their first glimpse of a new, innovative marketing campaign for a little-known supplemental insurance company in Columbus, Georgia. When a little white duck with a lot of personality stormed upon the scene, Aflac made advertising history and became an international powerhouse. Since then, the Aflac duck has appeared in more than 75 commercials and has helped catapult Aflac into a household name. We pick up where we left off in part 1 with Tom, Eric, and I talking about what happened as the years went on with the duck as a mainstay. I've also sprinkled lots of fun Aflac commercials throughout. The whole original assignment was for brand awareness. They wanted people to know the name. Has that changed through the years? It's been 20-some years. Is it more about performance marketing, or is it still just awareness and growth, or are you even aware of that?
We stopped working on it like 5 or 6 years ago. But as the awareness thing kind of, it sort of resolved itself, right? Because the awareness jumped so precipitously just within a short amount of time. So then it was like, oh, I've heard of Aflac, but what exactly does Aflac do? And it's not like everybody knows what car insurance is. Everybody knows what homeowners insurance is. It's like supplemental insurance. What's that? Like, oh, does that make it sound like it's not that necessary because it's called supplemental? So we spent the latter part of the time we were working on it having to have the duck be a facilitator for how people would learn more about the X, Y's, and Z's of what kind of policies they might have. But we kind of stuck to our guns with having the duck only say one word, which was the quack that sounded like Aflac. And we had to dig in on that because there were times when it's like, can't we have the duck like talk and explain what the benefits of Aflac are? And we kind of like died on the sword. No, it's got to be germane to what the original concept of the idea was. All the insurance advertising at the time was very serious. And now, now there's Flo from Progressive, who's comedic, and the State Farm campaign is comedic, and Allstate, and it's pretty much they're all comedic. And it kind of was the duck that ushered in that sort of like, oh, we don't have to take ourselves so seriously. We can poke fun at ourselves. And I'll never forget, I'm like, after we came up with the idea, and I'm not sure if like we had our commercial running already, it was not a short time after that. I mean, a very short time after that I'm seeing Geico and they have like a gecko as a spokesperson. And I was like, how lame is that? It doesn't even like rhyme with Geico, or it's such a stretch. Of course, they've been running, both of the campaigns are 22-year-old campaigns.
Even insurance companies now, like Liberty Mutual, are trying to come up with their little character, their emu thing, which was their attempt at, I guess, of being humorous and having kind of like a spokes animal. But, when we first did this, and like Tom said, they want to, how do we get people to know the benefits? How can we get, we want the duck to talk, but we were very strict, and we had guidelines of what the duck could do and could not do. And, through just the way he would act and the way he would present himself, or the way he would say Aflac, or the way you'd see him getting frustrated, that was the way he'd communicate. And I think because a lot of people, don't get heard and get frustrated and have to figure out ways of getting through to people, I think they related to the duck on that level because, here the duck is giving them the answer and they're not listening. We're very determined we were not going to have a talking animal because we thought that would just ruin the whole mystique of the duck. And, it's the duck that quacks the name of the company. That's it.
The other thing that we tried to achieve was tap into this sort of universal belief that people, nobody likes not to be heard, right? And basically, this is a duck going around saying, look at me, like I am the answer to a big problem you could be having. Hey, over here, this idea of having like a persnickety sort of not listen to duck sort of, I think, tapped into or hit a nerve that helped its popularity. And the other ingredient that helped that along to that end is that we casted Gilbert Gottfried, who mostly at the time was a stand-up comedian. He had been the voice of the parrot in the Aladdin movie, but he basically was a kind of, filthy but very funny stand-up comic. And goodness knows, if the client ever like saw his stand-up act, they would have never okayed him for the voice. But when we came up with the idea, I'm like, oh my God, we have to get Gilbert Gottfried. And it turned out we both grew up one neighborhood over in Brooklyn. I had seen him performing since he was a kid. We did think that Gilbert would be perfect because he was loud and annoying and sort of like that was the part of the duck's personality. So instead, rather than just give him the job, and we wanted to do our due diligence, especially for the client, we auditioned like 2,000 people, including celebrities like Penny Marshall and Dan Castellaneta, who's a voice of many of the Simpson voices. We brought in voices from South Park, and after doing all that, nobody could sort of deliver it what needed to be delivered like Gilbert, which was to be funny, to be shy, to be loud, to be rude. We would direct him every time we shot new commercials. We'd bring him into the studio and direct him. Say it this way. Say it like you're drunk. Say it like you are crying. Say it like you're really even extra annoyed.
Remember, we did the roller coaster spot where he's on a roller coaster and he gets off the roller coaster and the duck is like, okay, Gilbert, sound like you're about to throw up.
Relax, we got supplemental insurance.
What are you talking about?
If we get injured and miss work, we're covered for things like lost pay and other expenses with this.
With what?
Plus, they pay you cash. Great, huh?
Who does?
Aflac. Ask about it at work.
We did a synchronized swimming spot in which he had to say Aflac underwater. So we had him, we gave him a bottle of Poland Spring water in the booth, and he basically gargled the word Aflac.
Some people don't think what we do is a sport. That's because you can't get hurt doing it. Otherwise, we got that insurance. What insurance?
What? Come again?
The one that pays you cash. If you're hurt and can't work.
Which one?
Aflac. Ask about it at work.
And he was like nonstop in the booth, gargling with the water. It was getting all over him and everything like that. But we would keep having to hit the stop, the talk button, stop, because he was just so funny. He just would just go on and on and on. And we got it, Gilbert, we got it. Now here's the next thing you need to do.
By casting Gilbert, because I'm familiar with Gilbert Gottfried also, it gives you even more reason other than your others to just have him say one thing. Because
Yes.
then you're safer in network television commercials and campaigns. You've got it. You know his one word that he's going to say. Why do you think people connect so much to the duck? Is it just because it jolts you out and surprises you? Like, why is a duck yelling at me? Or is there something else to it that makes it more personable? What would your opinion be?
I think part of it also is that people thought the duck was real. People thought that the duck was like, how are they getting the duck to do all these things? How do they get the duck to talk like that?
I had a friend who was, I forget how old he was when the duck debuted, like five or 6 years old. And he's like, oh my God, they trained the duck how to say Aflac. So there was, even though it was partially a live duck, partially a puppeted duck, and partially a CG duck, depending on what we needed the duck to do, there was this thing that he became humanized somewhat by actually saying kind of a real word. And then I think this personality sort of trait that he had, that's sort of like
You felt empathy. You felt empathy for him because like he's trying to get this message through, right? And no one's listening. And I think people relate to that. And just the more he was frustrated, I think the more people related to it.
Somebody told me kids or people would use Aflac sort of like shorthand for like kind of yelling at their friends or being frustrated. Robin, the account person who didn't want us to even show the duck, I'll never forget. She was in Italy online, like a very long line to get into the Vatican, and someone in the back of the line was pissed off and just started saying Aflac like randomly to give voice to her frustration of not getting in to see the Pope.
How does the creative come? Do you come up with the copyright first? Do you come up with a slogan? Is there music that you have like maybe playing in the background while you're thinking? Do you go to lunch?
One of our offices used to be right outside Bryant Park. So we would just go sit in Bryant Park and work. And, we're, very observant, and we look at people going back and forth and seeing what they're doing. And we would just get ideas being out. We got more ideas being outside and just, seeing things that caught our eye that might inspire an idea. We also used to work a lot in Starbucks when Starbucks used to be all plush with couches and stuff like that back in the day. And if you remember, Tom, we saw that guy. He had a pet pig. This guy was dressed. He had a bow tie on, and he just was dressed like a character. And he was walking a pet pig in front of Starbucks on the street. And we said, I wonder if we could do something with that. But we were always out more than in the office coming up with ideas. And then music-wise, if a particular piece of music fit, like we did this spot called Silent Movie, which was kind of the antithesis to what we're talking about, sound. Like, how do you do a silent movie with a duck that says Aflac, right? We did the classical, piano, silent movie music and stuff like that. But I don't think music was really a driver. I think we did a number of celebrities in our spots, but the celebrities were always related to a way of getting our message across. Like when we did the spot with Yogi Berra, because he always has a unique way of saying things. So we thought he'd be a great person to work with.
Not too close. What do you think? I got that insurance?
What insurance is that, Yogi?
Aflac. The one you really need to have. If you don't have it, that's why you need it.
Need what?
Aflac. Well, if you get hurt and miss work, it won't hurt to miss work. And they give you cash, which is just as good as money.
Aflac. Ask about it at work.
I mean, when we sit down to work, it's sort of like it starts with like, what's the idea? Let's come up with a good idea. Maybe it's a song that is relatable to the product. Maybe it's a mnemonic. The other kind of big campaign that Eric and I did that's still on the air is Napa Auto Parts. For that, we came up with the line first, Napa Know-How, which grew out of a truth about their brand that, unlike AutoZone and O'Reilly's and other auto sort of repair places, Napa actually hired mechanics to be in the front of their stores. So there were knowledgeable salespeople and not like some kid who was working at Walmart or Target the week before and is now at the front of the store of like an AutoZone.
Cardiology, I don't have the heart. Pulmonary doctor, no cigar. I can't diagnose a simple cold or flu, but if your engine's got a cough, I know what to do. Give it 6 of these and wash it down with this. A new air filter ought to help it catch its breath. Napa know-how. Napa know-how.
To make sure that Napa know-how, aside from the alliteration of all the N's seated in people's heads. We did come up with a song, and we hired a Southern band. I forget the name of the band.
Rascal Flatts?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, and he came up with this song, Napa know-how, Napa know-how. So when that broke, it also, like, you kind of couldn't get it out of your head. And the other thing, I'd say that is unique to those campaigns and what we kind of set out to do is that only Aflac could have had a duck quacking the name of the company that sounded like a quack. So it turned out that ultimately, you couldn't ever separate out the duck from Aflac or Aflac from the duck. They became so entwined that whenever you saw a duck, you'd think Aflac, and whenever you saw Aflac, you'd think of the duck. And similarly, AutoZone know-how doesn't quite have the alliteration or memorability of Napa know-how, so that only Napa could say Napa know-how because of their knowledgeable people and because of the alliteration of the words.
Tom said, like, the alliteration, Napa know-how, and like, how that just, like, is easy to say. It like kind of runs off the tongue. And then when Wendell did, Napa know-how, that just accentuated it even more and became, its own little memorable device, from a sound point of view.
You said, I think 90 different spots for the Aflac duck. Can you both tell me what's your favorite? Do you have a favorite?
I have like 3 favorites. One is Yogi. One is silent movie, and the other one was film noir. Those are my favorite 3.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. We'd shot one, and we had a 60-second version that was a total takeoff of like black and white film noir movies with a damsel in distress who's hurt and she can't work, and we kind of did it way over the top, which we tend to do.
She was beauty, brains, and damp.
You have to help me. I'm afraid I'm gonna get hurt, and I need cash.
You have that insurance, don't you, sweetheart?
What insurance?
There's the rub. I couldn't remember. When it pays you the dough when you're hurt and miss work. Go ask about it. Whatever it's called.
Ask about what?
Yeah, so sometimes we would try to find little genres to put the duck in, and then we did a Christmas spot with Rudolph, and we worked with the Rudolph people. We did an animated Aflac spot with that we worked with Warner Brothers, and we had Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Wile E. Coyote in that animated spot, and we worked closely with them as well. So when we first came up with it, we said, maybe this campaign will last 2 or 3 years if we're lucky. Even leaving the editors, when we finished the first 3 spots, we were in the cab saying, "You think this is going to be good?" You don't know. Like, who knows what's going to hit, right?
And I guess the one spot we didn't make, but we tried to, was using Ben Affleck.
Yes.
About 5 years into the campaign, Ben Affleck was on like talk shows saying that damn duck is driving me crazy. Like little old ladies in the airport coming up to me like Aflac, Aflac, Aflac. So we actually got a storyboard into his hands, and he actually left me a voicemail on my phone saying that duck is driving me crazy. So yeah, maybe we'll look at it. It never got anywhere, but he didn't need the name recognition like Dan Amos did.
That would have been amazing, though, man.
Yes.
That would have been hilarious. Well, thank you both so much for your time. I really enjoyed this. I hope you guys had a good time, too. I'm sure my listeners will enjoy this.
Yes, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
For the exhaustive history of the Aflac duck.
Hey, can't get enough.
More than you might want to know.
I hope you're enjoying the show. Don't forget to subscribe on all the major podcast channels. Share with friends, follow, and rate. Spread the word because, well, more people should know about this stuff. I know you know that now. For any other inquiries, you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also email me at Gina, Jeanna, at dreamrproductions.com. All links will be provided in the show notes. Let's make this world of sound more intriguing, more unique, and more on brand.